Shalom, everybody. Happy Easter, happy Passover. Sandy Kreisberg here, Fridays with Sandy. We've got a very powerful candidate here from Spain. We don't see many of them. Mr. Candidate, could you introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about you?
For sure. Hi, Sandy. Thank you for having me on. I'm a last year economics student from IE Business School in Madrid. And I'm
Okay,
applying
what's
for
your name?
Arturo Cuesta.
Arturo. Okay. And you're applying for the 2+2 program,
That's right.
and what are you doing now?
Right now, I'm finishing my studies. In this July, we'll be joining Goldman Sachs in London, working in investment banking.
Good for you. Where do you go to college?
I went to IE University, which is the undergrad branch of IE Business School in Madrid.
Okay, and how is that school? Does that school send people to HBS at some point, either through 2+2 program, or people graduate, i.e. they work for, an investment bank or a consulting firm, and then after 3 years they go to HBS?
I believe so. Not many, but from the Spanish cohort, at least a few every year, I believe.
Yeah, I think the Spanish cohort's a plus. According to a website at HBS, according to a website at Harvard University, there are 10 passport holders from Spain at HBS, and it used to be more. So I don't know why the numbers, like for the last 10 years, the number of Spanish students at HBS, this is both years at HBS, it's sort of like 17, 16, 14, 15, 12, 13, and now it's 10. So it's going down. Do you know offhand what that could be?
I think perhaps it has something to do with the strong marketing that European business schools have been doing lately. I think LBS, HEC, and SEAD are strong options too.
That's a good answer. It could be that. Good. Okay, let me cut to the chase here. What's you've got a very powerful, I got this right, you're number one in your class at IE University, which is one of the three most highly reputed universities in Spain.
That's right.
Okay, that's a super plus. And then you've got golden work experience. You worked at Goldman Sachs over the summer. Goldman Sachs is a good company to work for. And then you were at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Spain. Boy, what was that like, and what did you do?
I was working for the Department of Africa, specifically Sub-Saharan Africa. We're working on strategic things like natural gas deposits for Spain. Europe has been having some gas problems lately. However, I found it very bureaucratic and just not very dynamic. So I wanted to have an experience also in the private sector afterwards. So that's why I went to Goldman Sachs.
Okay, let me give you a tip here. When you're explaining things, don't denigrate, don't make negative remarks about why you ever left any place or what your experience was. Every place you worked was good. Every place you worked was exciting. Every place you worked was, filled with learning opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
You might say, oh, that's BS. Well, welcome. BS means what it means in slang. It also means business school. Welcome to business school. That's BS. And to some extent, welcome to business. Okay. In business, there's a lot of presenting things in the most optimistic way. Let me put it that way. Okay. But you see, that's an exciting experience, and you should write it up as such.
It was. I got a chance to work with ambassadors and people from a lot of different countries I had never had exposure to.
You're a quick learner. Did you ever spend time in Africa?
No, unfortunately not. But I've had some exposure in boarding school.
Okay. And then you've had another job at the VIS group. What's that?
It was a financial consulting company in Panama City. And even though I worked remotely, we were working on data, building algorithms in order to develop an interest payments calculator for a local bank.
Yeah. Okay. So far, everything is solid gold, man. You're the kind of candidate that the 2+2 program would be very interested in. You come from a sort of underrepresented country, or a country that they're interested in getting applicants from. That would be Spain. You've got unbelievable, you're the valedictorian, summa cum laude at a leading university in Spain. That's great. You've got great international experience. You've worked for Goldman Sachs and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That's all impressive. We've discussed this before. Your GRE score is really on the low side. It's 163 verbal and 158 quant. They look at both of those. Your English is perfect, okay? But the school may not know that. The school might look at the 163 verbal and say, this guy might have trouble with English. So, and the 158 quant for a tech guy like you is really low. That GRE score is an equivalent of a 640 GMAT. Okay, I'm just putting this out there. So, what are you going to do about it?
I believe I've tried to showcase throughout my whole application that I've taken quant courses in university, and that my job experiences have been quant on the quant side too, so that I won't have any problem with the courses at HBS.
Yeah, what are you going to do before that? Are you going to take it again?
I'm actually quite close to having the deadlines for some universities. Stanford.
Okay, let me say something. You should do a little research. Some universities allow you to submit GMAT and GRE scores after the deadline. You should find out what those schools are.
Okay, that's very much appreciated.
There's nothing more you could do. There's nothing. You've got a lot of great stuff in many different directions. The bare truth is there is nothing, and I mean nothing, that you can do to help yourself than to raise the GRE score.
Mm-hmm.
Schools believe in it, and they're always concerned about their rankings. I would try and take that score. I would try and take that test over, and I would find out from the schools if you can submit it after the application deadline.
Okay, I didn't know I could do that. That's great. I've also taken the TOEFL, and even though I haven't gotten all the scores back for the parts that I have gotten it, I've gotten 30 out of 30 and 30 out of 30 in reading and listening. So I believe maybe that's also a plus on the English side of things.
That helps. Is there a speaking part? Is that
there's a speaking part and an essay writing part, and I haven't gotten my scores yet, but I should get them very soon.
The speaking part is what the schools are concerned about. In the first instance, is this guy able to hack it in English? Is this guy going to be lost? Is this guy, when the professor calls on him, are other students going to reach for their phones? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it happens that your English is terrific. You won't have any problems with English, but you won't be able to. Yeah, you won't be able to convince them of that until you get interviewed. So the trick is we want to get you interviewed. Okay.
Great.
Could you? We've got a couple more minutes. You're 2+2. You're applying to HBS 2+2, Stanford, Wharton, and CBS.
That's right.
Those programs are very selective. They're more selective than. Okay. We'll deal with 2+2 in a minute. Let me just make this point. If you applied to Harvard 2 years from now, 3 years from now, working at Goldman Sachs, you'd be a very, very strong applicant. Everything is just good here. 2+2 is more difficult. A lot of people who get dinged from 2+2 wind up actually getting in 2 or 3 years later. So 2+2 is highly selective. I would say your chances of getting into 2+2 with your current GRE score is like 20% and or 15 to 20%. I think the admit rate for 2+2 is like 9 or 10%. That's the whole admit rate. It's similar to what Harvard's admit rate is for the regular program, but the pool is much more selective. So, yeah, my advice to you is take the GMAT and keep taking it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't get into 2+2, take it again anyway for
Mm-hmm.
when you apply. Keep taking the high GMAT score or GRE, whichever one you prefer. It's real important, man. It's more important than the schools ever admit. It's a dirty little secret.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that the scores would be competitive enough to apply in 2-3 years in the normal cohort?
It would hurt you. It might also hurt your, well, they claim that they give money out, not on financial need, but I question that. It might help. A higher 2+2, a higher GRE score, or GMAT score might help you get money, even though the school deny it. And like I said, employers ask what your score is, man.
Yeah. What do you think would be the chances for other programs like CBS or Wharton?
Program like CBS, you'd have to convince them you really want to go there, because they look at you and they go, boy, this guy is also, this guy's using us as a safety. And you don't have to answer that, but that might be true. Okay. If you apply to CBS, that's Columbia Business School, you've got to make a very strong case why going to New York is important to you, and that you've met people from there, and you really have to say, this is the place for me.
Mm-hmm. I see.
Wharton, once again, dirty little secret, they really care about the GMAT. So that would be a reason for you to take it again. Stanford cares about the numbers. You have a history of overcoming adversity. That's one of the things the schools respect. The adversity could be financial or dislocation or geographical, or you're an orphan or what. Do you have a history of that?
I believe so. My family comes from a small village in the middle of rural Spain. And actually, my grandmother never learned to read or write. And my mother was the first one to get an education. She didn't get a bachelor's degree, but she got a degree that allowed her to become a teacher for inmates in prison to get their high school degree. And so, yeah, we've had a long intergenerational idea that education really matters and that it's what drives people forward. And
okay, the schools are less interested in that, although they credit it and they believe it. They're interested in how you overcame adversity, what you did, how you reached out to teachers to get help, or found a mentor, or just worked really hard. Okay. So that should be part of your story. When you present yourself to these schools, you should mention that. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you're first gen college, that's a very important statistic. And that, that 2 or 3 generations ago, your family had people who couldn't read or write. That's a very powerful statement. Mm-hmm. So you should weave that into your story. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah. Great.
Like the Harvard essay question says, we've got all these numbers and recommendations. What else do you want us to know about you?
Mm-hmm.
So we can wrap. So let's just, what were you thinking about telling them? What were you thinking? How were you thinking of answering that question?
I believe that what I want them to know is that my direction in life is very influenced by the academic and personal trajectory that I've had, that has been inevitably affected by the people I've been surrounded with. So when I was 16, I got a scholarship to attend an international boarding school where I could study the international baccalaureate. And this was thanks to a mentor.
Okay, here's the way you answer that question. What I'd like you to know about are how fortunate I've been in having people help me. Okay, mm-hmm. That's the lead sentence. And then you go, I was born in this situation. My grandparents, or whatever the truth is, could not fully read or write, whatever the truth of that is. And the way I've been able to make progress with that background has been by finding mentors and being fortunate enough to have people help me. Mm-hmm. And you just go through the people and how they helped you.
Great.
That would be a great. And then the Stanford essay, it's kind of the same thing. It's, what matters most to you. And what matters most to me is the influence that my, mentors and teachers have had on me. And then you just repeat the Harvard background, mm-hmm. blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. So got a 2 for here. This is worth going through because it's helpful to have this straight. Give me what your current plan is about employment. What job would you want after business school? What job would you want as your second job? And what job would you want at the height of your career?
Mm-hmm. So in my career, I aspire to combine two main things, two main passions, which is finance and international development. And basically, I want to take the goals that a lot of the international finance corporations have. Let
me give you a hint. Okay. Answer the question immediately.
Okay.
And then give me the explanation. My first job after business school, I would like to work at a firm like X or Y or Z. And let me tell you why.
Uh-huh. My first job after business school would be to work at the private branch of the World Bank in the IFC, which is the International Finance Corporation.
Well, that sounds a little specialized. How did you come by that?
Well, throughout my studies, I've been able to have multiple experiences in the public and the private sector. And there are two main things that I've really enjoyed throughout. First, during my experience in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the public sector, I really liked the international aspect of cooperation and fostering economic growth. And during the private sector, I've had the chance of exploring dynamism in a fast-paced environment.
All right. Okay. My first, if they say, could you give me a, what your jobs plans are after business school and finally, it's okay to say, my goal is to work at a place like this or that, and here's how I plan to get there. Mm-hmm. That way it doesn't sound, you see, your answer is very specialized and it sounds like it's coming out of nowhere. And
I see.
Well, you did work at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, so it makes a little bit of sense. But do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, good. And then you just go through the jobs.
Great.
Okay, and then our final question. Is this the one nobody ever is capable of answering? I forget my own history. Who's a role model for you? Or name three role models. Or, well, start with one.
Mm-hmm. My first role model is my mentor, Diego, who is a major Spanish philanthropist and businessman. Well, I've had a chance to work with him in various projects and various NGOs that he has founded. And I have seen how he leads with humility and how he's an avid listener. And I really value those skills in leading with humility and making people feel part of the organization and the project.
Okay, that's good. And then they often ask this question, what's the best thing he ever said to you?
Fear not. Fear not. Be bold.
That's, you might say that after you actually mention something that he said to you and what the circumstances. What were the circumstances of him saying that? Let's take it backwards.
Mm-hmm. The circumstances where I was doubting myself in a moment throughout college where I did not know which direction I wanted to take in, whether it was the public sector or the private sector. I was wondering whether to apply for a PhD eventually in an area of policy development and economics, or whether to go through the private branch of things. And he encouraged me to explore and not be afraid, and to have an open mind to get to know different perspectives, because he claims that during the 20s you can afford to take more risks, and that that's how you.
That's the answer. He told me that. I went to him and I said, "Look, I've got real doubts about whether I want to, if I should put my efforts here or here." And he said, "Well, you're a smart guy. You know how to make decisions. Let me just add something here. During your 20s, you can take more risks."
Mm-hmm.
So he just said, open yourself up to more risk. You don't have to plot your entire life out right now.
Mm-hmm. Great.
That's basically what he said, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
good.
Fantastic.
And then, well, he said you don't have to plot your life out right now, but I'm asking you as a question to do it. So what job would you want after your first job? What do you want? Let's start the question over again. Could you tell me what your final goal is and how you plan to get there after business school by working at 1, 2, and 3?
Mm-hmm. So my final job is to work at an institution like the World Bank, specifically in the private sector branch of the World Bank. And what I plan to do right now after college is to go on to investment banking in Goldman Sachs, where I've been fortunate enough to receive an offer. And after that, I plan to proceed into a field like impact investment or private equity.
What would that mean? What is name a job, name a firm after you leave a leading investment bank like Goldman Sachs? What would your next job be with a firm like what? And what would your title be?
Mm-hmm. There's a firm I really appreciate, which is Mundi, which is a Spanish venture capital firm that helps startups that have either an ESG focus or an development focus.
That's great. Okay, come up with 2 more like that, and you sound like you really got it.
Okay, fantastic.
And then, what would you do after that?
After that, after going to business school, I would hope to apply for the graduate programs that the World Bank has, specifically in the private sector branch of it, where they work with ESG funded portfolios, venture capital in developing markets.
Is that a job you can get right out of business school, or do they require something else?
Yeah, they require you to have an MBA or a PhD. Specifically for the IFC, which is the International Finance Corporation, they like MBAs slightly more than PhDs, when you can also get in with a PhD.
Yeah, but they'll take you right out of
yes.
graduate school.
Yes, it's a 5-year program for their leadership of the World Bank.
Okay, you should have the name of that. It's like a rotational leadership program.
Exactly.
Yeah, you should be able to say that, have the name of it, and go, that's my plan.
Great. The World Bank graduate program at the IFC. Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes they say, well, what would you do if that didn't work?
Well, if that didn't work, I would like to keep on exploring the venture capital route, because I believe that working with people and having a micro impact investment is very meaningful to me. And I believe that will also enrich my experiences from having the wider, more macro view of an investment bank and institution with the more startup-based work on the field.
Yeah, okay. And then you should have name some venture capital firms you admire.
Definitely Mundi, which is a venture capital firm in Spain. I do also very like the private equity branch of KKR, because they have a green portfolio that's great, and we need to do a further research. But
okay, you're great. You're all up on this. There's only one thing you got to do. What's that?
take the GRE again.
There you go. Tough love. Aside from that, man, you're a very powerful candidate. I expect to, if I have any eyesight left in 15 years, I expect to be reading about your appointment as head of the World Bank. Okay, Arturo. Shalom, and thanks for playing along with us here.
Thank you very much, Sandy. Thank you for having me on.